Hello, 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 and welcome to the fourth episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 5. My name is Kelsey, and today I'll be talking about a book. Well, I'm going to be talking about a few books, a few romance novels I've recently read. This episode is late. Weekends just aren't really long enough anymore, but that's okay. I'm just going to try to do what I can when I can. Work's been really busy, and now I'm apparently sick, but we're just gonna power through, and we'll see how it goes. So sorry if I sound terrible. So yeah, let's dive right in. Today I want to talk about some romance books. Romance? Did I say that weird? Anyway, I want to talk about some romance books that I've read recently, namely ones that I've found on like Facebook or Instagram that I just decided to give a go because I kept seeing the ads and reading the little teaser things, and was like, sure, why not? There's actually going to be 4. I kind of squeezed in another one. So let's talk about The Demon's Guide to the Afterlife series by Kel Carpenter and Aurelia, Jane. The Faded to Darkness trilogy by Jen L. Gray, and the Don't Let Me Fall series by Kelsey, or I think it's Don't Let Me, I don't know. But the first book, Don't Let Me Fall by Kelsey Ray. And then I was just going to throw in an extra one at the end, and that's the Curvy Girls Can't Date series by Kelsey Stelting. First up is The Demon's Guide to the Afterlife series by Kel Carpenter and Aurelia Jane. Again, sorry about my voice. The first book in this trilogy is Dark Horse, and then it's followed by White Raven and Black Swan. Here's a summary of that first book. My husband killed me. Instead of spending my immortal afterlife ticked off and angry, I moved on. I became someone. Sure, that someone was a demon with the highest track record of reform, aka punishment, in heck. But who's bragging? I'm right on my way to retirement behind the pearly gates. Everything was going fine, until a risk witches saw a terrible vision. 3 men, each scarred in their own way, born with powers that haven't been seen in eons. Upper management sent the best to correct their path. Angels, poltergeists. Nothing worked. These men were too stubborn, too bad, too untamed, so they sent me. Roman Ezra Dorian. Combined, they have enough power to end the world, and they will, unless I find a way to stop them first. Breaking people is my job, but this time, my job might break me. So what to say about this series? It's kind of nice to read something that wasn't about Fae, because when I was reading these, like every other book that I was reading was Fae centered, and I tend to read probably at least 3 books at a time. This one I think was a 4th book that I was reading at the same time, perhaps, but yeah, so it felt more unique, especially because of what I was currently reading, when I feel is really being pushed right now in that romantasy world anyway. But yeah, I liked that the woman in the story was older. She wasn't some 17-year-old girl. And she wasn't some innocent little lamb that didn't know anything. You know, like she kind of held the power in the knowledge department for a lot of the books. So it was kind of nice to see this like incredibly strong woman. Like she's stronger than all of the dudes, because, you know, she's that demon. And it was nice to see her have a bit more, you know, knowledge than love interest, more power, and kind of being a bit more control in that way than what we normally see in a lot of these, which is, you know, the 200-year-old vampire with a 17-year-old girl. So that felt very fresh and new. And yes, this is a male love interests book, another reverse harem series. Much like the dark, what are they called? The Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac, I think is the series name, which is kind of that prequel of the Zodiac Academy books, which yes, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna freaking do it. Anyway, I will say that the overall writing for this series was fairly decent. It was even funny at times. There's like this crow, which I think it's a raven. It's like a raven character. And he was pretty funny. I will say that there probably could have been a good edit to kind of get rid of some of the odd bits here and there that kind of made the writing feel a bit like first-time writer, you know? Like there's things that people will say or do where it feels like if you had a solid editing, maybe you could kind of pull back on some of it. But still, it still felt like it was a pretty good writing. And again, it was pretty funny. So that helped. I felt like the world building took a little bit to get there. But it still could have maybe been fleshed out a bit more towards the beginning. I felt like it wasn't really until like that third book that we really understood a lot of the aspects of like the world that I guess there's two authors, that they were building. And then I also felt like the relationships themselves felt a little bit odd. Like it is a reverse harem, so there are, multiple love interests that she's kind of building this rapport with. But I kept thinking that the third guy, who's like a werewolf shifter guy, I kept thinking that they forgot about him. Like, it just didn't feel like they were really forming a connection at all until suddenly they had this connection. Whereas the other two, I think, got a lot more time with the main character. And it felt like their relationship developed a bit more, and at like... they were definitely at different paces of development. The Ezra guy, she latched onto him the most at first, but it felt like they were kind of given equal times to be able to develop at their relationships at their own paces, whereas I think his name was Roman, it felt like they never really had any time together, and then suddenly they were all of a sudden like ratcheted up to, having this connection. So it was just really interesting. I don't know. Like I said, reverse harem, and I feel like this book helped kind of crystallize something that I've been thinking about as I've been reading a lot more, spicier books. And I feel like, and maybe this is just the ones I've been reading, but I feel like a lot of them have the same approach. Like, okay, so this book has 3 different dudes, right? And they're very different fellas. I mean, they're all supposed to be like the alphas and stuff, but they're all 3 fairly different types of guys. And yet their spicy scenes were kind of all written the same. Like, there's no real difference between the dudes when it comes to that specific point. Try not to be too explicit here. But I'm trying to say that they all have kind of like the same exact tastes, if you know what I mean. Like, they're all on the rougher side. And I feel like that finally made it click in my brain that that's kind of how it is for every single book. There's no variety, which, I mean, isn't that the point with these reverse harem books, is that like there's a man for each side of her or facet of her, and it just felt like they were all kind of the same in that department. Again, Ruthless Boys, which is the first reverse harem book that I ever read, although I think this one's only like the second. But anyway, I feel like they're all kind of the same. Maybe Ruthless Boys is a bit different, but still fairly the same. But yeah, so these ones, I liked them. I read them fairly quickly. They're a bit different from what's very popular right now. I think even now, Faze is still getting pushed pretty hard. Although I think vampires are coming back, which I am really excited about because I am a millennial. I love Buffy, so love vampires, bring them back. But yeah, this one was kind of like, she's a demon. There was Ezra's a vampire, Roman was a werewolf, and Dorian was Fae. So there was a little bit of, Fae still in it, but I liked that it was a bit more of a diverse world. And then bringing in the demons into it. And like I said, I liked that she still had her own problems. She wasn't a perfect, super strong woman, but she still was kind of starting off at a higher level than a lot of books are right now. So I really liked that aspect of it. And again, I thought the writing was pretty good. So overall, not a bad series if that's what you're into. So yeah, I would suggest checking it out if those check your boxes. Next up is the Fated to Darkness series by Jen L. Gray. So the first book is The King of Frost and Shadows. Then we have The Court of Thorns and Wings. And then The Kingdom of Flames and Ashes. So this definitely follows the bowl of mac and cheese kind of a title layout. It is a bit more traditional in that this is, the Fae realm. But yeah, so the first book, The King of Frost and Shadows, the summary is as follows. A vengeful king, a lost princess, and the revenge he's desperate for. For the last 12 years, Tavish, the king of the Unseelie Fae, focused on finding the key for taking back his rightful lands from Seelie Fae after they killed his parents. There was one problem that stood in his way: locating the Seelie princess hidden on Earth. After years of haunting her dreams, he finally locates her and drags her back to their realm. She's forgotten her Fae life and wants to escape. He doesn't care. He merely needs her blood in order to free his people. But she's more than he remembers, and a spark ignites between them every time they touch. None of that matters, though. His goal is set: to drain her blood once her magic activates once again. He must take back what is rightfully his, no matter the cost. But if he does, the price might be what's left of his heart. For some reason, the summary doesn't even mention her name, but that princess's name is Lyra. This is a dual point of view book, so it goes back and forth between Lyra's point of view. The whole series is dual. So it's Lyra's point of view and also Tavish's point of view that we go back and forth from. And also, just as a fair warning, I'm still reading this last book. I had to take a break and read the book that I'm going to be talking about next, because between this book and I was also reading Zodiac Academy at the time, and I just needed something light, because this series is maybe like more of a darker series as well, and of course Zodiac Academy is pretty intense. And I think while I was really trying to read this, and when I had started, I was still reading book 8 of Zodiac Academy and doing that tandem read, so there was a lot going on. I was powering through both of them. It was really hard for me to switch between Zodiac Academy and the third book, and I just needed a break, and I couldn't power through this last book as a break from Zodiac Academy, because it's kind of the same issue where I was kind of it's hard for me to get through. Still is hard for me to get through, so I read the next book that I'll be talking about as a break, and then I thought I'd go back to this one, but I find myself reading actually the second book of that series instead. So yeah, I'll get to why that is in a little bit, but yeah, so I haven't finished this series, so I'm not quite sure, how it ends, and so I don't know if it's going to make up for some of the issues that I have with the book or not. But yeah, so I really did enjoy the first book. Yes, it's another Fae book, but it still felt unique to me. It had a bit more of the lore with, the Seelie versus Unseelie, the inability to lie, and a magical connection to the earth, all that kind of good stuff. But it's a bit more strict, like maybe you could say like The Cool Prince, that series, maybe more so that than, Zodiac Academy, where it's kind of really loosely based on Fae kind of lore. I thought it was really well written in that first book. There wasn't anything that really annoyed me with her writing, at least. I'm not saying it was, the best thing ever, but I thought it was pretty good. And I was really enjoying the series. And at the time, when I first read the first book, the second one wasn't going to come out on Kindle Unlimited for like another month, and then the third one was like a month after that. And so part of me was like, maybe I'll just buy the books. But then I started reading other things, namely Zodiac Academy. I think I was getting back into that, and so I kind of forgot about it, so it checked out that it was okay. And so I ended up waiting till they both actually popped back up on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm glad. Because then I read the second book, and that's when it really started to kind of annoy me. This is also kind of like a fated mates story as well. And I'm not sure if it's because I read them a couple months apart, or, if there's less editing in these books or what, but for me, it felt like the writing was just a little bit off, and there was something about it that just kind of annoyed me a bit more than I remembered the first book annoying me, which was not really at all. I was still enjoying the second book, but I felt like there was like a lot going on that wasn't necessary, and maybe, sometimes we get extra picky, I think, depending on what was happening, the context of what we're reading. And I could have been extra picky because Zodiac Academy was really, really annoying me at this point. But I figured that's okay. I'll still pick up the third book. And now I'm a little over halfway, actually, from the third book. And it's still really rough. It's really hard for me to power through. I want to know how it ends, and I'm going to finish it. I think it's mostly because, and I mentioned fated mates, but this may, be a potential spoiler, although obviously this is, where the story's going. But the mate bond in this story is super annoying. Yes, we like the trope of them being overprotective of one another because of the bond, the whole touch her and you're unalive trope thing that's very popular. But there's a point in the third book where Lyra, who again is a Seelie princess, she's like injured her wings so she can't fly. So she asks this guard to carry her so she can catch up to Tavish, because he flew off. And so she's like, carry me to him and so I can get there faster. And then when Tavish finds out, he's like livid that another dude touched her, even though she told the guard to do so. And then he punches the guy in the face, and the guy's like, honestly, it would have been weird if you hadn't punched me. And it's like, what? And then another time when Tavish is getting sewn up by some lady, and he's grossed out by her touch because it's another woman touching him. And then I think the icing on the cake is that he doesn't want even her own father to carry her or touch her. And it's just it's getting a little much, where everything that happens is back to their fated bond thing. And instead of just being having it this deep connection or whatever, I don't know, it's more driving the plot at this point. And it's getting annoying, and I feel if you can't even let her own dad touch her, that's a weird fated mate bond. I don't know why this is a thing. And it's it's gotten so bad that it's just really interfering with everything, and I just hate it a lot. So that's part of, I think, the reason why it's hard for me to get through, because their bond is just so over the top that it's annoying at this point. I still like the other parts of the storyline, so I am trying to finish it. But yeah, that part, if you really like a strong fated mate kind of trope, then you'll love this series, because it is very strong. It is over the top. Another thing is that Gray keeps naming her characters really similar names, and it's confusing, and I don't know why. There's Idrin, Eldred, and Erdan. That's 3 E names. And then there's also 3 F names, but I can't remember the third F. But I know there's Finian and Finola. Why? There's so many names out there, and yet she keeps naming them super close, to the point where it takes me a minute to figure out which is who, which day belongs to which person. I don't even want, when I'm writing, I don't want any names to have the same first letter even, and these are all crazy similar. So I don't understand it. But yeah, so I mean, this series started out really great, but it's definitely been rough for me going forward. Maybe they were rushed, or perhaps they weren't edited as much. But it's just really, really heavy on the mate thing, which bleeds into everything else, and it can be really annoying for me. But I guess we'll see if it ends well. I am trying to power through it, so we'll see. Okay, let's next talk about Don't Let Me Fall by Kelsey Ray. I've only read the first book in the series. When I was writing this, I'd only read the first book in the series and then finished it the night before. And I wrote that I was planning on finishing The Kingdom of Flames and Ash before jumping back into the series, but that's a lie, because I've already started the second book, and I think I'm halfway done, and I've only made a little bit of progress of Kingdom and Flames and Ash, and so I'm really trying hard to finish that book. It's just so much, you guys. But yeah, so I did like this first book, Don't Let Me Fall. I thought it was pretty cute. I've seen her books pop up all the time on my feed, and I'd added it to my list because she's a Kelsey. Spelled the same name, spelled the same as my name, Kelsie, which isn't super common, and I always feel I gotta support my fellow Kelseys, so that's why I, dove in. I actually purchased this set from her, instead of, finding it elsewhere, like on Kindle Unlimited, because I don't think it really is. But yeah, so I decided to do it, and I found out since that I think she has 2 other series, and they all kind of tie together, so I might continue with her other series too. Because like I said, I thought the first book was pretty cute, and I did like it. So the summary for this first Don't Let Me Fall book is as follows. We were never supposed to happen. He was my boyfriend's roommate. He was also my kryptonite. So yeah, much shorter than the others. That's all that we get for the summary, which is fine. Much more simple than the other ones. I think it was good. It was a good, quick read. It wasn't super heavy, which is what I was needing and what I'm craving at the moment. The pacing was pretty good. The drama didn't drag on too much. It was pretty nice. Also, I was a bit nervous that there would be cheating since, it's my boyfriend's roommate. But there wasn't. I mean, there was definitely things going on that I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with myself, since I am, married. But it was more from the other person than it was from her. And also we know that the boyfriend is a dirtbag, so it kind of makes it okay, and that their relationship is kind of on the rocks. But at the same time, if you're not feeling it, leave, and then you could, open yourself to other people. But, I mean, whatever. It wasn't super cheaty, if that makes sense. And so I didn't hate it. If you don't think too much while reading, I think it's a great book. I think there's a few issues, like when she finds out that he was, and again, obvious spoiler, which I've already actually said, so it's fine, cheating. It felt like she kind of jumped to a conclusion that wasn't completely explicit. Like, we knew that he was cheating, but for me, if I got that same text message, I wouldn't have thought that. But maybe I'm an idiot, which 100% possible. I just thought it was going to be more of a thing when she found out than what it was, and so I was a bit surprised. So I don't know. But otherwise, yeah, again, I think it was a pretty good read, pretty cute, very simple, straightforward little romance book. So yes, I've already started the second one, and I'm not hating it, so that's, I think, good. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about this series, is that I'm enjoying it, and it's a pretty easy, light read. So if you want, a little bit of something to just kind of maybe draw you back in, or like to get over a reading slump, or, you want something quick and light, then that first book or the series could definitely do that for you, I think. Although, I don't know about the rest of the books yet. So, speaking of Kelsey, I also wanted to mention the Curvy Girls Can't Date series by Kelsey Stelting, also spelled Kelsie, because we're great. I'm not sure, I don't think I've talked about these books before, certainly not on an episode of its own, and so I figured I'd throw it in here as well, because it is a book that I found on like Facebook or Instagram. I really like the first one, which is Curvy Girls Can't Date Quarterbacks. Let me just read the summary real quick. So Emerson Academy's star quarterback, the invisible plus-size girl, and a bet that could ruin them both. The mean girl told me someone like Beckett Langley would never date a plus-size girl like me, and my mouth spoke before my brain thought. I bet her I could get the star quarterback, Beckett Langley, to take me to homecoming. If I win, she'll stop bullying me, and if I lose, I'll stay home from the dance like the pariah she thinks I am. The catch? He doesn't even know I exist. My friends are all on board, trying to get his attention so she'll stop making fun of girls like us. But then I get to know the real Beckett, and he's kind and thoughtful and tired of only being thought of as a good-looking jock, just like I don't like people judging me. And now I have a really big problem. He doesn't know our relationship is built on a bet, and I don't know how to tell him the truth without losing the first and only guy I've ever loved. So kind of like a reverse She's the Man, or not She's the Man. That's a different movie. A reverse She's All That, but with slightly different things happening. I don't know where I was going with that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But yes, so the first book I really liked. It was super cute. It was also kind of my first introduction, I think, into like the romance novel kind of world, where you get the first book that kind of sets up the next books where they're about different characters. And I really liked that. I really liked the group of girls that she introduces, and I did read only the first 5 books. So that was like the original group of girls, and I think the next series follows one of those girls' sisters. So it's kind of like a different like generation, I guess, if you will. So I didn't read those ones, just that original one, and I really did like them. I probably the first 3 were the best. The first one was definitely my favorite. The 4th one, which is Curvy Girls Can't Date Bad Boys, was a little bit off for me, but that could have been more because I listened to them, and for that one, it follows one of the girls who is Indian, and her dad is Indian, and she does like this accent for the dad, and I thought that was a little bit odd. And I don't know, just I felt like the 4th book, like the end of the end of the books, you kind of got like a little sneak peek of what was going to happen in the next book, like starting it up. And at the end of the 3rd book, it seemed like the guy she was dating, I guess like fake dating or whatever, seemed nice, and then the next book he was just like a complete jerk, and so I thought that was a little bit like whiplashy. And yeah, I don't know, something about the 4th book just kind of felt a little bit off to me. And then the last one, which is Curvy Girls Can't Date Best Friends, which is one that I think all of us were really looking forward to. It was the couple that they kept setting up that we were like, we know that they're going to be a couple, but there aren't a couple yet, and we knew it was going to happen. But I felt like the pacing was a little bit off for this book. Just some of the fake dating trope thing could have, I think, lasted a little bit longer. And just, yeah, some overall weirdness, I guess, didn't make it as good as I think like the first one really was. And yeah, so I highly recommend the first book. The other ones I think were, the 2nd and the 3rd were pretty good still, and then the 4th one was a little weird, and then 5 I think brings it back, but again, I think it's still not as good as the first one. And yeah, so those are some books that I found off of Facebook or Instagram that I've read recently or semi-recently. I read them so that you don't have to. I'm just kidding. I think you could read all of them. They all were pretty good. I know I'm saying that I'm struggling reading that last one from Jen L. Gray. What is that called? Sometimes I feel like reading on Kindle doesn't really help me because it's hard for me to remember the names of books as much because it's on Kindle, if that makes sense. But yes, the Kingdom of Flames and Ashes. I know I'm struggling trying to finish it, but I did really enjoy the first book. It's just a little too hard into the mates for me. I think out of all of them, the Curvy Girls Can't Date books were my favorite, especially the Curvy Girl Can't Date Quarterbacks. That's probably my favorite book of all of these ones that I've read. But yeah, those are the books that kept popping up that I've finally decided, you know what, I'm just going to read them because I keep seeing ads for them, so why not? And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on some romance novels. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed or disagreed with any of the books that I've read, and my opinions, I guess, about them. I guess you can't disagree that I've read them. I mean, I guess you could, but that'd be really weird. And let me know if you have any suggestions. What books have you been finding on social media that you've picked up that maybe you liked or you hated? You can find me anywhere you find your podcast, probably, though using Spotify would be very helpful for me. Please join me next week where I'm going to be talking about my favorite series finales. Just some TV shows that I really love that I thought had like the best season or series finales. And based on how many times I talked about Zodiac Academy, I will definitely be doing a book episode about it. So stay tuned for that. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.